parent, staff, or community member would like to know what was discussed. If you do not wish to be recorded, please let us know at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. I will bring this meeting to order tonight at 6:01 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome. Tonight, we will start with new staff introductions. I was going to say interruptions. Introductions. So Debbie, you would have mind joining us at the podium?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. We are so pleased tonight to be able to share some of our newest staff members with you. It's typical that we hire 30 to 40 new staff members at the beginning of each school year. And as you can imagine, lives are busy and not everybody was able to make it tonight, but some were, and the administrators who supervise them will be introducing them tonight. So I would like to ask, where's Cassie? Cassie Cornelius to introduce some of our newest food service employees. So if you and your two employees would come up, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Cassie, Director of Food Service, and today I have Felicia with me, who was an employee last year at PTR but has been moved up to the PTR lead position, and so she's taking on a bigger role this year. And this is Brady Sawyer, who was a long-term sub for us last year, and then moved into the lead position over at LES.
Welcome. Good, welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, and welcome. And also like to ask Dr. Westover, our employee here, okay, and Dr. Lee, I think we're going to wait a moment, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right.
Not for me.
We've got, you know that Oregon traffic, just gets you every time. So next I would like to ask Abigail Finney to come up, and if you would please bring those with you from OES. And I have the honor of also starting with introducing Abigail Finney, who is, where'd you go? She is our newest administrator in the Oregon School District. We were pleased to say that she joined us July 1, but we had not had the opportunity yet to have her come to a board meeting and meet you. She is serving in the role of assistant principal along with Principal Connie Alberson-Tran. And she comes to us from the Sumner Bonnie Lake School District, where she served as a high school world language teacher, Spanish. And she also did her internship there at the elementary level. And so she has the whole gamut of elementary and secondary, and has just been a wonderful partner for us since joining us at LES. So thank you for being here. And with that, I would like to give Abigail the mic to be able to introduce her staff.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing Miss Jenna Allen, who is our newest third grade teacher at Oregon Elementary School, and she is fantastic. We're just honored to have her.
Thank you. Welcome.
I hope you enjoy Oregon Elementary as much as I did.
Memories, right? Right. So next I would like to ask Principal Nikki Mesa and Assistant Principal Anita Hill to come up and along with their PTR staff.
Good evening. I'm excited to announce some of our newest Mountaineers. So I'm going to start first. I'd like to announce Nisha Wilson. Nisha actually was a reset para last year. She completed her student teaching in second grade, and she, okay, and this year she is joining our first grade team. So welcome, Nisha. Along with Nisha, we have Heidi Dearborn, who actually taught overseas last year and did an interview at 2 in the morning her time with us to join our Oregon School District team. And so Heidi is also joining our first grade team. I'm excited to have her here and her expertise, especially at different worlds overseas and then back in the U.S. And then I have the pleasure of introducing Brianna Taryn. Brianna actually split between OES and PTR. She is our new social emotional learning specialist. And she actually taught at Campus Prairie at the Bethel in 4th grade and got her master's degree in social emotional learning. This is her passion, and you see it in everything she does. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hill to introduce the rest of our new members.
Good evening. I am pleased to introduce the remaining folks behind us. We are lucky to have Stacy Buzzard in part of our life skills dynamic duo. She joined us from right next door, so we're super excited that we have her from her experience at the high school. And then we have Alana Winters, who's joining us as our new school counselor, fresh off her internship and a short stint in Puyallup School District. So I didn't make any friends when I snagged her from them over there, but we're happy to have her. And then Presley, also, we got to know her as a student teacher in 3rd grade last year and knew we just needed to keep her on our team, and she's back this year as a member of our awesome 3rd grade team. So we're super excited about another great year of great hires.
Very good.
Thank you.
Welcome very much. Thank you. It's fun, I'm going to ad-lib a bit here, but it's fun to see some of the new hires because it reminds me that when we did our first ever Oregon School District job fair this last spring, some of these people were hired. Next, I'd like to ask Principal Kevin Collins to join me up here along with your team.
Thank you, everyone. Kevin Collins, principal at the middle school, and I am so thrilled to introduce our newest member of the Falcon family, Jessica Aller. Jessica is an Oregon grad herself, so welcome back. And she comes to us most recently from Liberty University. She's doing a master's out there and has returned home to start her career here with us. She says her favorite thing so far about Oregon is just how positive everyone has been, and says that Oregon Middle School in particular has that glass half full attitude which she loves. So welcome, Jessica.
Welcome back.
She's our guidance.
And now I'd like to ask Principal Cliff Freeze to come up with his staff members.
So I get to introduce two fine folks today. First joining us from the Muckleshoot Tribal Schools is Catherine Barnes. She's our new culinary teacher. Small win, I don't know for her, she's very, very brave. She already took on cookies, which I was like, that's pretty, you're gonna cook already, huh? She's like, oh yeah. And she has not set off the fire alarm, even though we don't have any ventilation. So that's a win for Catherine. We're super excited to have her here, and she's a great addition to the Cardinal family. Second, I don't feel like I'm introducing a new person. I think you recognize Sarah Gilchrist. Sarah's doing a CT assistant position. It's a new position to support CT work, which has grown tremendously at the high school over the years. And often, when you're leading a building, people quickly move into roles and you don't even know how to do their jobs. They become quickly skilled. This week, she said a sentence to me. She said, yeah, I'll get up to that. Just real quick, I'm going to finish these CT articulations, and I'm going to move on to the next thing I'm doing. And I already went, she already knows more about her job than I do. And those CT articulations are hard, and they're very long, and they take a lot of work. And she was like, I'm pretty much done. I know how to do them. And I was already impressed with the skill set that Sarah's accomplished. So it's pretty amazing to have both these folks join our family. So thank you for approving the hires.
Welcome.
Thank you. Dr. Lee, I know you have someone who is stuck in traffic and may be another 20 minutes. I don't know how we're going to work that out. But is there anyone that I missed? Okay. Well, those are the newest staff members with Oregon School District. And again, we're so pleased that you have approved their hire and that our principals and directors worked so hard to find the right candidates for us. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, and on behalf of the board, we welcome each of you to Oregon and back to Oregon and in new roles while you're here at Oregon. So we're very happy to have you serving our students this year and beyond. I remembered, as riveting as the board meetings can be, I know you all have busy and full lives outside of this room, so If you'd like to stay, we warmly invite you to stay. If you'd like to bail, you're no
Mine are almost done.
Okay.
Stephanie, please send me,
Speaking of new, well, you're not new, you're new. I would love to turn it over to Superintendent Hatzenbeeler for introductions of our student board representatives.
Sure, Board of Directors, it's my pleasure to introduce your new junior student board representative, Miss Carly Castro. She's an accomplished pianist, been playing for the last 11 years, and you'll actually see her tickling ivories at the Ording High School Jazz Band. She's a volleyball player, a member of the ASB Executive Board, so she's been very involved already welcoming our students back and leading assemblies. Post-high school, she has aspirations to join the United States Air Force and pursue a medical doctor degree. So she's envisioning being an MD. I understand she has a cute Maltese named Sunshine. And then she's very proud of her cultural heritage, includes Korean, Mexican, American descent. So we are very happy to welcome Ms. Carly Castro to the Board of Directors. Welcome, Carly.
Welcome, Carly. We're excited to have you here. We've intentionally kept these roles on the board because we want student voice in our discussions. So I just invite you both to chime in and ask questions, and don't be afraid to speak up. All right, wonderful. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Joanne's computer is narrating. Not sure why. Joanne's entertaining.
It's his turn to have a conversation.
You're okay. I'm okay.
I'll share. All right. Board recognition. Board, we've got lots to celebrate. I will turn it over to you. Anyone?
I am going to just do the shout out to all of our teachers, bus drivers, nutrition services staff, the secretaries, technology team, custodian and maintenance teams, administration, just all of the employees for preparing all summer long to bring another school year where we're able to connect, inspire, and empower all the students. Getting off the ground for a fall start is always a very exciting time to look forward to, and the work that is done behind the scenes to get there. I like that we just acknowledge and bring that out and say thank you to everybody.
I want to say a shout out to that we had 2,800 students into our schools this, at the beginning of the school. And it's just excited to see the learning that's going to happen, the growth this year. So shout out to that.
I'd like to thank Ed and the cabinet and principals and whoever organized the kickoff this year. It was amazing. Probably I've been to a lot of kickoffs. And this is probably one of the best ones I've ever been to. It was really good all the way around. It was just amazing. So thank you for putting in that effort.
Now I'm confident this week.
You should be.
You should be.
And we welcome the future class of 2037 at Ording Elementary School and Tommy Ridge Elementary. And it's always exciting to have the kindergartners in the building. And it's a fun and hardworking working group of people that happened when they arrived. And how many new kindergartners do we have?
Final count, I think we were in the 168, 169 area. Few less than we predicted, but we saw increased growth in other grade levels. So our actually overall enrollment is up from budget at this point.
I actually wanted to give one other shout out that isn't on here because Carrie mentioned student voice, and I wish Kevin Collins was still here, someone's going to have to tell him. So, my grandson, who's in the life skills class, this year when it came to electives, they, during summer school, took him to each of the rooms for electives so he could see and have a choice because he knew what they were talking about. And so I thought that was just an amazing way to give student voice to students that have a hard time making their voice known. And I thought that was a great use of transition time to help those kids be familiar with their choices.
That's really good.
Yeah. So, off script, but I thought it was important.
I had a few things of my own that I wanted to mention. September is Hispanic Heritage Month, so I'd love to recognize our Hispanic community, and I'm enjoying learning more every year during this month. I learn more about the Hispanic community that I didn't know beforehand, and I felt like I was well educated, but I learned something new every time. So I encourage you to seek out any information that you can help yourself learn more. I also, some important information went out, and I just want to shed light on it. When students miss just 10% of the days at school, 18 missed days, it can really shorten their learning experience. They fall behind, they miss important milestones with their classmates, and it doesn't sound, I mean, when you say 18, it sounds like a lot, but it can break down to just 1 or 2 days a month. And so I know there's a lot of different reasons that students miss school, but parents, if you're listening and watching this video, your children being in class and having the opportunity to learn with their peers is really valuable. So I hope you make the best effort to get them there. And the last thing I just think is so cool, I love Mr. Scott anyway, but his class that is interviewing our community businesses to learn about their successes and challenges. We had a post about that on Facebook. Thank you, Brittany. I just think that that's a perfect example of inviting our community into our schools and having our students be a part of the community. So I just want to recognize that effort and celebrate it and say thank you.
And another shout out for the fall sports that are out there now. We got football, we got volleyball, golf, soccer, track and field, baseball, and fast pitch. So, and that's high school and middle school. So
And cheer.
And cheer, yes. So yeah, I mean, shout out to them too.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. It's just the beginning of the year. Lots to celebrate.
And the marching bands practicing
And
too.
yes,
Yep.
yes. Perfect. All right. Next item is community and staff comments. This space is dedicated to our community and staff who may want to share something with the board. I don't believe we have any signups today. Okay. Thank you very much. And with that, I will turn it over to Superintendent Hatzenbeeler.
Excuse me. On the community staff, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So this is my first time I've come to a meeting. Would this be the place that I'd make a comment if I so choose?
Yes. So when you arrive to the meeting, there is a sign-up sheet so that we, know who you are and plan for that space in our agenda. But yes, anyone is invited to address the board. You have a 3-minute window of time to share any comments or feedback that you may have or ideas. And we welcome that participation. And you're also always invited to every board meeting. Our meetings are open, so we would encourage you to come and be a part of the conversation.
Okay, real good, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's why I came.
Okay.
And if you miss it, you can always go to our website and you can look at the videos of all of our meetings. And all of our agenda is also available on the website under the board.
Yeah, I took a look at it, but it was a bit cryptic to me since it was my first meeting.
Totally understandable.
So I decided to come in person to experience it and learn the basics to where, as a citizen of the community, I could contribute.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think it's my turn.
It's your turn.
Okay, so we're going to move on. I have a lot of information to share, because I'm going to share just information from the last meeting till now, as well as information about the upcoming school bond, just so you and the public, local community have some key facts. We mentioned the boiler this summer at the last meeting. There is a picture of an old 80% efficient boiler and a brand new 98% efficient unit. So we're able to install that at PTR. So now the ladies before me out in the audience have nice warm water for their children. Kudos to Dr. Westover. This is the highest safety net award I've ever seen in my life. I believe she received 99.9% of her request, which is I've never seen before. So we did receive $1.1 million back from the state of Washington for expenses incurred to support our special needs students. So congratulations to Dr. Westover. I know that made Marcy smile and myself as well. We're very happy to see that. We did.
Wait, sorry. For
Yep.
clarification, I just want to make sure I'm following that. That's money that we have spent, but
We spent.
that is now reimbursed.
Reimbursed. Anytime we go over the state threshold, we can apply to receive that money back. So we have to spend a little over $40,000 of our own money before we can qualify. So that's for behavior technicians and their supervisors or private placement, a lot of qualified costs. So she went through every IEP, every minute available, and went back to make sure that award was fully inclusive, and we have to prove every single dollar and minute expended. And I've just never seen that kind of return on an ask before, so I was really excited to see that. Yeah, great. Wanted to put some street data in there. We've talked about street data for the last year or two. Summer school was a huge success, so I wanted to put some of the quotes that we got back from our special needs students in the preschool and summer programs. So looking at some of their feedback, we wanted to capture their feedback about what worked, how did that impact their feelings, and just look at Crystal. I like reading because it calms me down. I like how at the end of stories there's a happy ending. It's like a movie in the book. She's making sense of things and building her own efficacy, but then look what happens in the data. Every student that attended and came, we saw a benefit from one or more skills. So that was a very worthwhile time frame when we collect the data, both improving their own belief and efficacy in their ability to become readers and writers, but also from the data of the targeted skills, we saw growth across the board. So we're really excited about that. And we were able to use, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but some of the ESSER funds that we've talked in the past, Dr. Westover spent a lot of those funds to bring in core curriculum that we can not only use in summer, but keep that through the year. So the kind of growth we're seeing in the summer with the CERT staff that came and worked with the kids, we're able to put that in place throughout the year as well. So growth has been the name of the game for a while. Over there you see what summer looked like at PTR, a lot of excavating, dozing, moving dumpsters, making room for, not in the timeline we had hoped for, because they're still being put together now, but those are new portables. That adds 2 double portables, so you get 1, 2, 3, 4 classrooms out of that, and that will help us to grow. So they reshuffled their deck with who is placed where to make sure they can start the school year with students housed in actual classrooms, which pushed intervention out in the hallways and things like that. But now, as soon as those are finished and electrical hooked up and everything like that, we'll be able to start learning in there. We did more work over at PTR over the summer by migrating early learning. As you recall, we moved our developmental preschool and ECAP from OES location to PTR. So now they're bubbling, pushing around 740 total students or so. But look what we did. We were able to create a new pickup and drop off uniquely for the developmental preschool with the new ramp on the left. Curtis and his team added engineered wood fiber play chips so we can create a play area and then steps down to it. And then also some wonderful news. As you know, we've been pursuing funding from the Department of Commerce in the state of Washington to fund a new 8-classroom early learning facility. We learned last week we were accepted to get $1.01 million from the Department of Commerce to help fund that early learning facility. We'll be pursuing additional funding with the state legislature because what used to cost $1 million about 4 or 5 years ago is now going to cost about $4.5 million. So we need quite a sizable bill more, but we're working with our legislators to help bring funding to that. Also, Ording School District was selected as one of 4 school districts in Pierce County to receive a portion of a $500,000 federal grant to bring a community garden space uniquely designed for early learning. So it's been a strong focus of yours to build partnership with the community, so that'll allow us to have that farm-to-table experience and bring in hands-on learning to our early learners. So when you think early learning facility, if funded, opening around 2026, there'll be a brand new community-based garden. And Matt Carlson with the high school is still planning to build that community garden space. The bond would provide that ag science remodel in that lab. So bring a wonderful parallel from the early learning phase all the way through high school. Kickoff. Doc Brown, when he came and visited, we'll talk about him in a little bit, but he remarked there are very few places where kickoff has been inclusive, where it has certificated, classified admin staff all coming together. So he was really impressed by that, very impressed that our students, Jaden, the rest of his cheer team were out front, or drum line. He just loved the vibe, the feel. Cassie's team was serving food, homemade breakfast burritos. So wonderful inviting into the space to learn. And then the learning about how do we empower, how do we really empower our learners? How do we empower ourselves? How do we really be our best selves so we can make sure we're doing everything we can to lift each of the learners under our care? He gave us lots of good strategies, anecdotes, not only from his background, but also made some challenges amongst us and pushed us out of our comfort zone. Thinking about supporting learning, there before you, there's Director Rab with one of the shirts from Doc Brown's experience, but in those bins, if you zoom in, tons and tons of math manipulatives, looking at how do we make math learning, how do we make math relevant. So our teachers, as part of the kickoff, spent time of how do we actually unpack and prepare for the newly adopted curriculum. So if you recall, we're still implementing K-5 on the ELA. We have fully implementing K-5 math curriculum brand new this year. So our teachers have been really unpacking, trying to learn that. Math is starting a new pilot at 9/12, and we're in the process of researching ELA. So looking at the state data, we will share that next month of where we've been. We're giving our staff a sneak peek with some of the scores here this Friday. But all in all, we've been going gangbusters in the instructional world, trying to lift those outcomes and re-envision what core needs to look like. Brittany was a big champion. She's here in the audience. So she spoke to you in the spring about what she's excited about. That's part of what she's excited about. Tools and resources to actually figure out what kids need and then deliver that in a timely way. Kickoff really had that empathy, empower theme with a dignity focus. I wanted to share a video of what the first day of school looked like at Ording High School. So Matt Carlson will be queued up here on the video.
Here as a staff and as student leaders of the school developing this. The card plays for this. We're going to ask you to show compassion to each other. We're going to ask you to learn how to accept the differences that we all have and figure out how to coexist as cardinals together under one big family roof.
So each school took that idea around dignity, tried to unpack it, make personal commitments, enhance their values. The executive team here at the high school planned for a welcome where freshmen went into the pack, were purposely invited into the gymnasium, rounds of applause, really helping them to feel welcome, included. CARDS is the acronym that the high school came up with. SOAR is what the middle school is doing. The elementaries are doing their own branding, if you will, and discussion about how do we implement and create that elevation of dignity across our schools. So we're really excited about what we saw because it's really making a difference to starting to grow roots. So I'm interested to see what our students have to say during their report. And part of their ongoing student advisory to you will be, what do we see in here across our schools? And what's really working? And what do those strategies look like?
Here as a staff and as students.
I want to share some information about the bond. We are starting the campaign of getting out into schools and sharing our staff facts and information. So I want to make sure you have some of that same information as well. We would remind the community that the idea around what is in that bond package was community-led. We spent a year and a half as a Citizens Facility Advisory Committee studying the issues and the needs, and they made recommendations which were very similar to the survey results you collected. You did 2 different surveys, 339 respondents, and all of that feedback led to kind of the same big ideas. People were concerned with overcrowding in the schools, concerned with the current elevation of safety, health, and security, which both was kind of from that idea of the physical safety as well as cooling and heating and some elements to make our classrooms more conducive to learning. Preparing for local jobs and careers was a strong theme. Supporting each of our schools was a strong theme, but being fiscally responsible. People were concerned about tax rates and taxes, and rightfully so. I would remind you in the community that the bond that was approved way back in 2006 was paid off in 2022, so there is no current bond on the books. When it was on the books, it did average $2.81. You took that information and came up with a $150 million bond, and although a majority of voters approved, a majority doesn't pass a bond, it requires a supermajority. That bond was 11% less than what the previous bond was. So you slashed, you took out an 8 classroom addition at PTR, 2 gymnasiums at the high school, some other elements, and you reran that bond for 40% less than the previous bond. And the amount of yes votes went up, but 55.8% is still not enough to pass. So you took a strong look at that, and you felt like the package was secure, but you helped to reduce that rate even further by amortizing that bond over a full 20 years. So what the voters will consider in November, it's a little bit more at $119.2 million, but a 46% lower tax rate than what was previously on the books. So it is the most affordable option that voters have seen so far. Looking at the overall tax rate, Orting School District is still the lowest funded school district in the entirety of Pierce County. So we're at about $1.88. If approved, that would put our combined tax rate at $3.40. So we put up a few school districts so you can see a comparison of what that would be just for you and the taxpayers, and that'll be on our FAQ page so people can see how does that compare and where are we at today. Looking at the growth, we did finish our projections using the current developer analysis, and so those numbers are really firm. Through 2033, we're expecting over 5,300 single-family homes and over 500 multifamily homes. When we look at the average of getting historically about 1 student for every 2 homes, that does add just about 2,400 students, which what does that do to the bottom line? This is what it does to the bottom line. So by 2033, we're anticipating over 5,000 students in the Orting School District. The red and the green represents what we actually have space for inside permanent capacity or inside a school. So green, think in 4 square walls, a permanent building, red is portables. So right now, over 750 students in portables, but here's the alarming thing. If approved in November, a new school doesn't come online for years down the road. So what I'll be sharing with our staff is that mark around 2028. Here's what life looks like. That's the soonest we would open a new elementary. At that point in time, we're expecting over 1,800 elementary students, which would be 900 for our colleagues at PTR and 900 for Orting Elementary. Think about the fact that those 2 elementaries were built for 750 students. And I don't have to tell you, but we need to tell you what life would look like with 1,800 elementary students. At the same time, the campus right next door to OES, Orting High School, that has 850 students today, would have over 1,050 students. So all the challenges around parking, around lack of bathrooms, around lack of intervention space, health rooms, cafeteria, all of those would not only be worse, but way worse. Because when we look at elementary capacity, we're 81% over our built capacity today. In 2028, we will be 141% over our built capacity. So last year I forecasted to the community in my letter to the community that someday in the not too distant future, we may have to consider double shifting schools. And when would that be? It's around that 27, 28, 29 time frame. Because if you don't, your other option is you have 1 elementary school of about 600, 650, and another at 1,300, 1,400. because there's just nowhere else to put elementary students on the current campus. So what would this bond do? It moves several hundred students out of temporary facilities or portables into a brand new Ording Elementary School on a separate site. How does that help with safety and security? It moves from over 40 exterior doors, which every room at Ording Elementary has an additional exterior door. It would move it to one main entry, which creates a much, much safer campus. It would add way more space, over a quarter mile of pickup and drop-off space for parents to drop their kiddos off. It expands just for that school 65% more parent and visitor parking. It would add heating, cooling, adequate space for a cafeteria, a playground that actually drains, that doesn't turn into a lake in the wintertime, and would provide for similarly sized K-5 elementary schools, which would be our goal. We don't want to create that dichotomy. Our neighbors on the other side of the highway, PTR, would get an expanded cafeteria and gymnasium space. We would move to keyless control systems, which is important not only from a safety security perspective, so you know who has entry to what, but that also allows you to instantly secure a facility if there's an emergency. So it would give you the ability to an automatic lockdown system. We would add a secure double entry, front entry to their facility, as well as add heating and cooling to their facility with upgraded HVAC. Ording Middle School, similarly, keyless controls, automatic lockdown system, added heating and cooling, so it creates some parity there. The high school, right now, we have the same 4 spaces to train students for careers that we did in 1986 when it was a high school of about 250 students. And right now we're serving about 900, and as I've shared, just a few years from now we'll have over 1,100. So that means no space for trades. Many of our students, in fact the majority, go right out of high school to working careers. But if we don't have the facilities, the technology, the equipment to train them, it puts them at a disadvantage when they leave. So what would happen there? We would create a new CTE STEM wing that would add capacity for about 200 students. That builds modern labs, creates the room for hands-on experience, could allow us to grow not only the STEM field, but the career technical education coursework. And it does remodel that existing culinary lab, and it also remodels the current STEM room as an ag science space. So right now, our students that are learning about the ag sciences are doing it in a portable. You can't weld in a portable. You can't learn about carpentry in a portable. You can't service the cow's hooves and whatever the pig needs that we have. You can't do that in the portable either. So the other piece that it does, by moving OHS to one campus, it allows us to someday down the road provide for a new high school. Because there is no way you could build a high school with the elementary there, because the students have to be housed somewhere. So it does expand parking and capacity at our high school as well. We got the question a few times about growth, and is it good, is it not good? This is a new slide, so I thought I'd share it with you. When we look at how much growth has enhanced or reduced tax rates, I thought I'd share this chart. I was a high school principal here in 2015, and our total assessed valuation was about $1 billion. Homeowners were paying almost $8, about $7.70 in tax rates. But look what's happened since then. With the growth that's come in the district, it helped to drive that tax rate down. Because when you divide whatever that tax is by more homes and more people, it spreads the wealth, if you will, and reduces that cost. So when we're thinking about what does the growth do, well, just in the last 4 years, this year and the last 3, we're looking at $867 million in new taxes from people that are brand new to this district, which means next year about 1 in 4 tax dollars we paid for someone that has just gotten here, just in the last 4 years. And so what does that growth do? If you look at the value by 2033, what 5,362 and 500 multifamily homes is worth, that's about $5 billion. So think long term. Over the next 50 years, that assessed valuation is worth over $500 million in tax revenues that people existing here wouldn't pay, because that's brand new dollars. And our ability to bond is dependent on our assessed valuation. We're limited by law, so we don't ever overtax people, to 5% of our assessed valuation. So what does that mean? That $5 billion would allow the board of directors to borrow a new $250 million bill every 20 years. This bond, the maximum repayment term of a bond is 20 years. So if you look at the value of what those new homes are bringing, You're talking well in excess of $1 billion potentially over the next 50 years. Why is that important? An elementary school cost in 2016 was $21 million when I was a director of business and operations in Enumclaw. That same school I just shared with you is over 80 million. Home values historically go up 4 or 5% per year. Construction costs increase by 7, 8, 10, 12% per year. So if you don't have some way to grow your tax base, you never can afford to take care of the things that you have. If we don't have growth, you will never be able, in my working career and probably my lifetime, to even touch a high school, let alone a new elementary, because the costs are just so expensive. So we definitely want to get that information out to our taxpayers. If you play this out to 2033, Ording School District today, that's relatively property poor and commercial property poor, will be worth what Tahoma School District is worth today. That's how fast we expect things to grow and escalate. Looking at parent-guardian data, I put some of that in there. We represent our OSD parents and guardians about 20% of the total ballots returned. The good news is we saw an increase in engagement at the ballots with our parents and guardians. It went up from 43% to 47% of that group's ballots returned. So we're pretty excited about that, and the outreach activities that each of our schools did led to measurable improvement. So we're really excited. We'll be sharing that with the staff. We'll be encouraging them at conference time and other spaces through November to really encourage our families and our community to register and participate in that election because we see positive things. We're going to continue our outreach. As you know, you as a board of directors, next month at your board work session, we'll host a community outreach where we'll do a tour of Ording Elementary and Ording High School. We're doing a special invite. Our elementary students will go over to the Ording Senior Center, make sure they feel included, invited, and they can come into our space. We'll have students leading the tours, so a combination of high school and elementary students, so they can tell their story and what things are currently like. We'll be leading our community through that. And then again, we'll host a virtual tour at the end of October so we can answer community questions. And in addition to that, mailer, website, will all be posted, social media channels with current facts and information, so our community can make an informed decision by November 5th. So longer report today, but hopefully that was helpful for you or our community to give some facts of where we're going with that. And that concludes my report for the month.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
First report of the evening is our student representatives report. So, did you guys rock, paper, scissors? Is this going first, or?
We didn't really discuss how we were gonna do this.
Okay, all right.
You want me? I got it. So we have a lot, not an absurd amount, but still a decent amount. First, our first day back was awesome. Our first day within, school's been in for about 3 weeks now, and so I can already tell with the new, cards way implemented, the first week of school, we really focused and broke down what does it mean to do all of these, live by this acronym within our school. And Mr. Carlson has been putting a lot of work into it. I can tell a lot, and it's super interesting and super fun. And I'm really excited for the ideas that he has, because today after school he pulled me aside and he told me about this student recognition idea that he has, and he was super excited about it. And so there's that whole thing. So I'm really excited for what this year is holding for us. First, we do have a couple sports just little updates that we know of. So football has won both of their games so far. They've been gaining large student engagement and getting crowds from everyone. And so they also have another game tomorrow against 7 p.m. for the varsity game. And then girls soccer has also been doing very well. They won their most recent game against Washington 7-1, which is very impressive. And then tonight they have an away game at Stilicho. And then volleyball has a game tonight as well. They have an out of league game against Grand Papasan, which is couple out-of-league games, which is, I don't know, it's really interesting and really fun because we've been going against 4A schools and they've been performing really well. So, good luck to them. Based off of, me and Jaden were both at kickoff, and Emmett Brown had his speech about seeing students instead of looking at students. And so we went to PTR, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
2 days ago. And we were able to really engage and talk to a lot of the students at PTR. We met with a kindergarten, second grade, third grade, and fifth graders, and asked them some questions for their feedback to help us really know like what they feel about school already. And we're planning on making this, we visit every school within the district eventually. This is the first school that we visited, and hopefully we can come back because we weren't able to really talk to like first and fourth grade and other, but we did ask 4 questions. Katie, do you want to go back?
Yes, I will take that over. So one of the questions that we asked, we started with second grade, and you know, with second graders, they all kind of say like the same thing, like they're like all different classes. So the first question was, what is something you've done to help other kids make you feel like you were making a difference? And majority of the students were saying, like, I don't know, like maybe like helping them out, like if they fell down at recess, or like, it was just like all the same answers, so I thought it was like kind of funny, but it made them feel happy, I guess, to help their peers. But when we moved on to third grade, not third grade, did we visit third grade? I swear we did.
Oh, yeah, we did. I like
Yeah,
it.
third grade. All right. Actually, can't find that question. Sorry. One sec. So I actually can't find the question. These are two like scroll together so you can find it.
For the second question.
Yeah, for third grade though.
Okay. We asked who at school makes you feel like you belong here, and how does that make you feel? These questions were created by Dr. Lee over there, so thank you, Dr. Lee. I think that was like, we highlighted we got a list and we highlighted the questions that really spoke out to us, and this question I think resonated with me a lot. I feel like my main goal really for hearing students out and getting their feedback was so we can really understand and like see them as people rather than just other students within our schools. And for them to have a sense of belonging is so insanely important. So when we asked who makes them feel like they belong, almost every single student that we asked, they mentioned that their teachers have a huge impact on their school environment. They said that their friends and their teachers always encourage and support them. And something that one student said that really resonated with me was that I know my teachers will always keep me safe and make me feel comfortable. And that was like so heartwarming to hear. So that was really exciting.
Right. So another question that we asked a kindergartner was, when you feel a matter of self, what helps you calm down and feel like you're in control? So we talked to 2 kindergartners. They both said something about hyper time, which we assume is something where they can like kind of like recess, but like not during recess, where they can like go and like just, you know, get all their energy out and then just, you know, like reflect on their actions if they had any actions. So I thought that was like kind of cool, hyper time. I don't know if that's something that's actually happens at PTR, but I would like that at high school. And then for our 4th graders, I actually can't remember if we talked to 4th grade. I feel like sorry guys. You're fine. It's okay. I do want want to skip to this part because this is part I've been waiting for. A 5th grader named Jared Becker. Miss Mesa actually was trying to figure out a math equation that she couldn't figure out. So Jared, he took his notebook during recess and he went and solved the equation. And me and Carly were just happened to be there while he was interacting with her. So we thought that was pretty cool. We also did get to ask him some questions and he had some really great answers for us. So I don't know where those went, but it was really good.
Don't worry. One question we did ask him, we asked, what does your teacher do that makes learning easier and make you feel good about your work? Something that not only just from him, I heard from most of the students. They had very, not broad, but like generally around the same things when I asked the same questions. And so they said that they really liked when games were introduced inside of their learning, and unique lessons could help them learn more efficiently, because sitting just in front of a board and just telling them what it is kind of difficult, I guess. The attention span, I feel like, has gotten worse over the years, and I feel like I have a very bad attention span, so I can relate with them on that one. And then also mentioned that teachers who gave back encouraging feedback with their work, on their work, pushed them to keep doing well and make them feel proud of the work that they do, which I thought was super awesome. When we were at PTR, the school culture at PTR was very encouraging, and I was super excited to hear about more from PTR students in each school within the district, emphasizing and highlighting the students' voices and making them feel like they're comfortable and belong in their schools. It's just so fun and so cool, and just seeing, like, I haven't been to PTR in 6 years. It's been a while, so like seeing how much the environment has changed and grown, and seeing like the excitement that I see with the kids running around, and especially like Jared, when we were talking about it, when he came in, he was so excited, and it was like a really like not eye-opening, kind of like an eye-opening experience for me, because it's having that motivation for, oh, I'm so excited to show someone what I did, and them getting that reward or that recognition for what they did, and making them feeling proud of themselves for what they did is really exciting and really cool. And I'm glad we're instilling that at in the elementary school level, and then hopefully that carries on as we go on to middle school and high school as well.
I think that's all we have, but yes.
Great report.
Yeah, great report. Good teamwork. I love
Yeah.
that. And also thanks for reaching out to kids at PTR. I think it's super important to hear their voices carried forward into this room, but also you made an impact on them. I'm sure they'll remember being asked, and sometimes just being asked what your thoughts are and what's important to you, and can be a big moment for the students. So thanks for creating that for them. Cool. We'll look forward to more. Good job. I love it. And we're excited about going volleyball. And also on Friday, there was a lot of community in the stands. So even, I don't have any kids in school anymore, but there was a ton of other people there who don't have kids on the field, also supporting the teams, and I just love that about Ording athletics and Ording activities, whether it's band or choir or whoever, just seeing community represented. We're just there to support the kids. It's cool. All right, financial report. I didn't see any questions on that. All good? Thank you once again. And now, presented by the Dream Team.
Dream team. Good day, right?
Okay.
just a
between.
little pause, a little-
Yeah, just
I
pause.
appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Maybe take a bathroom break.
Yeah.
So our duty tonight is to summarize really our strategic plan in a way that talks about progress. We spent last May really going in and rolling up our sleeves and talking about measures and different measurements of that. So this is tonight is really about two elements of that. One is a broad overview of kind of where we're at and the direction we're moving towards. And then the next report will really be about two of the goals that we're measuring and talking about progress along the way for that. So we really want to go back and really brag a little bit about our strategic plan. One thing that Doc Brown, I met him and I said, so I'm so glad you're here, and I asked him, why did you choose Ording? And he actually pulled out his phone and he showed me, I don't know how many pages, it was probably 15, 20 pages. Thousands of requests for him to come.
Wow.
And so I said, so why did you choose Ording? And he said,
Only a few highlighted.
and we were one of them.
Yeah.
If you were highlighted, we were one of them. And he said, it's because everything I read online about you all is something that I want to be part of. So our strategic plan for him was very powerful in looking at that. And he's not the only one that's done that. We're contracting out with the Core Collaborative. Dr. Paul Bloomberg said the same thing about our strategic plan. And I don't think I've talked to a colleague around the state where they haven't mentioned our strategic plan and the power of what that is. So it's a great document, but it's more than a document. It's something that's living. And part of that living document is we have to think about how we evolve and change over time. And so tonight is really about like how are we updating that? What direction are we going as a district? And you're going to hear that all year long from us. But really thinking about it hasn't changed. Our mission, vision, core values aren't going to change. Okay? Because Ed doesn't want to create new posters. Really, it's because it's very good. We'll deal with that. And if you think about our theory of action, in the middle there, it talks about this guarantee. And that guarantee is what I think we're going to focus in a little bit more tonight. Because I think that guarantee hasn't always played out the way we want it to. But that's part of the learning process. And we're a learning institution, so we have to think about how we adjust those things. But the focus on agency and dignity hasn't changed. That's the profound element that I think our strategic plan is different than others. And our goals haven't changed as well. So this should look familiar. The great thing about our plan, by the way, is that if you were to ask most people in our system about it, I think they'd probably tell you what's our focus. And they'd probably say agency and dignity, which I've been in education a long time. I don't think I've ever had a plan where people could do that. So that's pretty cool. So really we have to think about as we go into this year, and I'm going to report on some data that will probably be hard for us to really talk about, right? And so just in prepping that, I think Ed's going to share that data out on Friday with staff. They'll talk about like some slides that we've had, but the reality is that when you walk into classrooms, there's powerful things happening every single day, and there's great people doing great work every single day. And so we have to start looking at ourselves about like, what do we need to learn? And a big part of what we need to learn is around coherence. And this word coherence has come up time and time again. And coherence is really, are we all working in the same direction together? It's kind of like you're rowing a boat. Are both sides rowing in the same direction? And so coherence is something that we were kind of lacking, and we're working on that quite a bit this year. And a big part of that coherence is systems alignment. Do we have all of our systems aligned in a way so that core instruction really supports intervention and vice versa? Do we have an assessment system that really supports that as well? So we're looking at a new assessment tool, and it's called iReady. And that iReady tool gives us diagnostic information about every single kid, and then we're going to use it several times throughout the year so we can actually target what that student needs. And so that's going to be different. That's a learning that we had. We're really going to look at standards and a focus on standards. And I'll talk about standards here more towards the end of this. But there's a lot of standards out there, and I'll tell you how many later. It's kind of like when the Lone Ranger goes off the cliff. I'll come back to that. We have a lot of them. And so how do we find focus and coherence around that? But we still haven't lost that centralized work around agency and dignity. And one thing that I'll say that is a credit to our superintendent is that he keeps coming back to it. That message is pretty clear. And our principals, every single one of them with their schools, focused on dignity this year. And that's for someone who's been working on that for a long time, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. It's just it's such a profound thing for a system to look at. So we're going to double down on that and really come back to that a little bit more. So with that.
Yeah, so to talk about my piece, I'm going to start in a slightly different place. Several months ago, Debbie turned me on to this really cool tool that DeWalt just came out with. It was an electric pruner. I was a runner, electric pruner. We've got an apple tree we prune every year. And I went and got this electric pruner. It's really cool. Just hit the trigger and it goes whack, 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 whack. And I pruned our apple tree in hours less than previous time. What a cool tool. Well, the other night, Linda was trying to create out of long tubes of cardboard, small tubes of cardboard. I said, I got a great idea. And I ran out to the garage, I got the electric pruner, and I brought it in, and it went whack, 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 and all it did was crush the cardboard. So that thing will cut your finger off in a half a second, but it can't cut cardboard. And what it made me think of, this is how weird I am, is that's like what it is with curriculum, right? So curriculum has really kind of two parts. It's just a tool. Really, it provides the source and the resource for teachers, has the right pieces and elements for it so that they don't have to work and create all this stuff themselves. What we've learned over time, particularly with some shifts with kids, COVID gets a lot to blame for this, but it's part of it, but it's more than that, is how that tool is used. What's it used for? What's it not used for? What if you tried to do it this way? Would it produce the same kind of results it would do if you did it this way? So as we go through these adoptions, we have learned to embed the professional learning that needs to go in. So it's the combination, and the big word we use for that is pedagogy, right? It's how you teach. So it's the what you teach and it's the how you teach. And the curriculum itself is not a self-made piece like that. Even the bookworms curriculum, we're our third year in looking at bookworms curriculum, and we're identifying some of the holes that need to be filled with that professional expertise and as well as some additional pedagogy around literacy. There's no perfect curriculum. There's good curriculum, and we're getting it. And so what we're really focusing in on is not just having teachers have the right tools, but also helping them understand the right way to use that tool. So they're not trying to cut cardboard when it won't cut cardboard, and they're not cutting those fingers off either. So when you look at what we've got going on right now, we're in our third year of our literacy curriculum with bookworms. What we've learned about that is some of the pieces that we're trying to buttress with that to make sure that it's doing what we want it to do. We're in our first year, full first year of middle school math curriculum. We did a year-long pilot. I had one of our middle school teachers come up to me. She's also a high-cap building coordinator, and she came up to me after our meeting Monday with just a big, bright smile on her face. She goes, "Math is so awesome this year." And I said, "Why?" She goes, "Because I get it." So I've had a year under my belt, and now I'm going in. I have a lot more confidence. And so we do know that sometimes an initial implementation takes a little while for that to grow, but she's pretty excited about that. We have our first year of brand new elementary math curriculum, K-5. So our teachers are coming off of their third year of a new literacy curriculum and a first year of a new math curriculum. And what we're buttressing with both the illustrative math curriculum at the middle and the elementary curriculum at the elementary is pedagogical approaches to that. So we have a trainer that's hired in illustrative math, high effective teaching practices. We're in our second year of contracting with her, and she meets with these teachers on groups and individual. We had her 4 times last year. We've got her 3 times this year. We've got a strategy that's based on a really strong growing. You're going to hear about this before the end of the year because we're going to want to send a bunch of teachers to this conference that's coming to Seattle. It's called Building Thinking Classrooms. And it's really designed, it doesn't matter what curriculum you use, it's a K-12 approach to engaging kids in doing the math through collaborative work, through conversations, through exploratory, standing up and writing on whiteboards on the wall instead of sitting at a desk. There's a variety of different brain-based things that it's based on. So we're pushing that into, we sent elementary principals and teachers to that training this summer. Each building is implementing that in their own way while they implement the curriculum. And then at the high school, we're piloting a curriculum called Carnegie Math. And they spent last year screening different curriculum, deciding which one they wanted to work at. So as we're piloting that curriculum, deciding whether that would be an ultimate decision, whether they make that recommendation to implement it. We've also hired a person to come in who's certified in the building thinking classrooms strategies. So she's teaching them how to implement the curriculum, but implement it in a way that actually engages kids to. So we have a K-12 focus on the way that we teach math, not just the materials that we teach it with. Our 6-8 science pilot that we have going on right now is about hands-on science. It's about three-dimensional science and phenomenon-based science, kids actually doing science. And then our social studies and ELA, we're looking at different curriculum in reviewing that. And all I would say about that is, as we've looked with Dr. Paul Bloomberg about what our needs are around, particularly around literacy and our literacy standards K-12, and we know, as you know from the data that you looked at, we're lagging in some of those areas. So one of our keys around what we're looking for ELA and social studies is how do both of these work in conjunction around helping with secondary literacy issues. So ELA, it has the responsibility for both literary as well as informational text, but we also, we kind of had a meeting about this last week. If we're gonna pilot social studies curriculum, the selling point, the deciding factor on that is this curriculum that is actually supporting the development of literacy in informational text with our kids at the middle school. So we're kind of trying to see these not as different pieces that operate separately, but in this combination of good, strong tools and good uses of the tools and serving some of our larger academic needs that we have. That's how we're trying to align all of those. I mentioned the 9-10 integrated algebra pilot. Cambridge Math looks very strong. A lot of these new curriculums have AI built into them now for resources and tools for helping work with kids and stuff. So that's new for us, and that can be kind of exciting. But even with that integrated math, like I said, part of that professional learning that's happening during the pilot process is how do we teach math in a way that engages kids more fully. That was my 3 minutes.
Good job.
I don't understand what 3 minutes means, do I? You start off with an analogy about an electric tool.
All right, so as we look at students with disabilities and how we close gaps for those students, it's really important that we are working together to make sure that our students with disabilities have access to rigorous core instruction. So that's where it starts, right? That's the key, is making sure that all kids have access to that rigorous core instruction, and that we're only supplementing with additional resources and tools when the data demonstrates that students aren't making progress. And then we keep monitoring that progress, and when it looks like they're doing well, we supplement less. So it should always be kind of this laddered approach where we're always looking at how students are doing in this 6-week cycle and making a determination as to when to pull back those supplements. Because the more we supplement, the less access to core students have, right? Because there's not enough time in the day to do everything. And so we began a process we started last spring looking at supplemental resources for students with disabilities. I've never done this before in my career, but we looked at reading and math and a little bit of social skills, all across all grade levels, all in a 6-week period to determine what we were going to do, because we had the opportunity to do that. So at the resource support level, our students who are in our resource support program, we looked at adopting some supplemental resources that will help our students who are struggling with reading. The one program that we are using at the elementary school is called 95 RAP. And we are also looking at we're using a math intervention called Bridges Math. And then across all grade levels, we're using some social skills tools to teach social skills to kids who are behind in that area called social thinking across all of the grades. And then at the middle and the high school, we're using 2 resources, Read 180 and Math 180. I think the key is we're starting with these resources, but the key is to be able to go back to that last slide
and say who needs these resources and when, to make sure that we're not supplanting what's happening in core instruction, and make sure that we're only supplementing when we need to. So we did some work this summer with those resources. Teachers are off to a really good start with these resources this school year. We'll monitor and come up with database decision rules around how we're using the curriculum. Here's some pictures of this summer. This is Math 180 at the middle school. And you can see they're using some visual representations of fractions to work out fraction problems.
And that's my grade.
All
The
right.
one with lots of fractions.
Yes, yes, it's all lined up. In our, for our students with more significant disabilities, many of the students in our life skills programs are assessed using an alternative assessment called WAAIM. And that is aligned to alternative standards. So they've taken the core standards and kind of reduced them in depth and breadth and complexity so that students with significant disabilities still have access to the same standards but at a different level, if that makes sense. Previous to the school year, our teachers didn't have tools to teach those standards. So they would have to take whatever they could find and figure out how I'm going to teach, if I'm a high school life skills teacher, how I'm going to teach the concepts of biology to my students in life skills. And that's part of what they're assessed on the state test, right? But we didn't really have a very good way to do that. Our teachers were trying to come up with materials to do that for all of their students. So we adopted a program called Unique Learning Systems, which is standards-based. It covers science, reading, and math, and some social studies, and includes a program called Equals Math, which is a supplement to the Unique Learning Systems, that teaches core content that's standards aligned to our students with significant disabilities. When we were going through this training this summer, I heard some really cool things from teachers, like, oh my gosh, they've broken down these grade level math standards so my students can access them. Or one of the teachers said, I've been teaching for 30 years, and I've been trying to do all of this, and I can't do it by myself. And now you guys have done it for me, and now I can teach. And then I heard one teacher say, oh my gosh, my kids can learn biology. So some really great things. A few pictures here. Our elementary, like one of our elementary life skills programs there on the right, doing art project. And then we have our high school students on the last two pictures. They're doing a science experiment related to static electricity in that middle one. And then in that last photo, they were talking about hurricanes. It was a recent hurricane event, and they were looking at where the hurricane was in relationship to where we live. So exciting stuff. With that, I'll hand it back to Erin.
So one thing that Jennifer didn't really emphasize, by the way, good job, $1.7 million weight, is that what that is? Yeah, I rounded up. But that's impressive. So I think that the thing that most impressed me about that work is the first time that I can remember, and I'm in this business for 30 years, where we had comprehensive curriculum for our students and resource life skills. So that's a big deal. Really big deal. So nice job. Really nice job. So I told you I'd come back to standards at some point. So I looked up the standards today, and you might be amazed, but I was, because I never counted the number of standards we're asking kids to learn. So Jaden, I'm gonna quiz you on all these, so be ready for that. So like for ELA, this is over 13 grade levels, start kindergarten. So there's 4 strands, and there's about 12 standards per strand. That's per grade, right? So you figure like there's 48 standards per grade, so you take 48 standards times 13 grades, there's 624 standards. Wow, right? And with math, K-8's a little bit different than high school, but K-8 has 225 standards. And then high school has, they have about 273, right? So you add all of those together, it's about 900 standards. So you ready for this?
Yeah.
I'm sure you have every one of those packed in. As a senior, you're not done. You have the rest of the year. So that's a lot of standards, right? And so it's no wonder when we think about that enormous task we're asking teachers and students to engage in between kindergarten and when they graduate high school, that we have to have some, remember that coherence word, around what's important. Like which standards can we focus on? Because I'm telling you right now, there's no way, if we just focused in on one grade level standards from kindergarten to 12th grade, that we'd probably be able to accomplish all those. So if I put you right now on senior standards, you'd probably be able to get it, but what about kindergarten standards? Okay, yeah, see, so the reality is that we have to focus on things. So these priority standards, we have to make some standards a priority, and we make sure that when we make them a priority, that we have systems in place to really make them a priority. So if we think about the state testing, which is it's a big measure, and it's at the end of the year. So we have to think about what do we do in the interim. And so we're trying to break down that big test with those 900 standards on it, if possible, and say what are the ones that are most important, and how can we spend the school year assessing which kids got it, which kids don't, and then intervening on that, right? And so if we think about these interim assessments, that they're made by the state, they're kind of cool because they break down the standards for us, and then you can actually run it through a system and it gives us data, right? And so working on that, we're really working on these targeted interventions that go along with that. So when we make a standard a priority, we say it's a priority, and that guarantee, remember that guarantee that we have in our theory of action? That guarantee is of the priority standards. And so we're spending quite a bit of time systematizing that, and really thinking about, like, how do we truly make them a priority without, gaslighting people, right? And so that means when I asked Jaden when he's a senior, like, what are our priority standards? I bet you, well, I'm hoping at some point that Jaden will say, oh, I know exactly what those are. And that as a system, we're having kids set goals around those. And so really the power of this priority standard work is really the student voice that's part of that. And so if students understand the standards well enough, that they can set goals around that and chart their own progress along the way, then the odds of them not learning those diminish greatly. And here's the other part, is that teachers have the idea that they have to go teach kids the standards and then get them throughout the year to collect their own data and set goals around that, then the odds of missing those standards are almost none, right? And so we talk about priority standards in the way forward. It's super important for us to think about that. So 900 standards, can you believe that? Yeah, right. And we want to end this section really thinking about this graphic. Dr. Paul Bloomberg is really taking us through these cycles, and he uses these terms really of evidence, analysis, and action. So we're setting goals, and these goals are different kinds of goals, and we'll go into those at some point with you all. But really the core of this is really those cycles in the middle. And so throughout the year, we're really looking at what are called EAA cycles, where we find evidence of student learning, we bring that, and it's almost priority standards. Then we spend time analyzing. Is that the right kind of evidence? Do we know, can we assure that kids have learned or not? And if the answer is, yes, they've learned, we do that analysis, then we celebrate the heck out of that, right? But if we learn, nope, they didn't learn it, then we have to take action for that. And we have to do something different. So we have these cycles built in to our strategic plan, really building those goals out in a way that is tangible. So I'm going to stop there for questions.
What's ILT?
Instructional leadership team. It's kind of like every building's got like they take teachers, and they say you're on the leadership team, and it's called building leadership team. What's the other one? What's PLT? Professional leadership team. They're called different things, but it's all where you have the teachers really serving as leaders, and they come together and they make, they set goals, they really look at school data. It's really finding a way forward, those kind of things.
I was going to ask Steve, on the social studies curriculum, does it have a section where you're going to do civics?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would involve U.S. history, world history, civics involved in that, Washington State history.
Okay.
Because that's what we would cover at middle level.
Okay. I just like that they're including that.
I like the idea of multiple cycles, and then a check, and then multiple cycles. I think, at least in the commercial world, we've got monthly financials, quarterly financials, and you're constantly trying to iterate on that. But when I think about a school system, I think about a semester and a year, and I think those milestone steps in between are really critical. So I'm excited about the idea of our leadership teams and our teachers having that incremental data along the way so they can adjust.
And I think what's key to that is having it in a formative way so that it's actionable.
Yeah.
Because we have data all the time. Like we have data everywhere. I mean, our student board reps are reporting on data, that's data, right? And so what we don't have a lot of times is information on that and sense making of that. And these cycles force that.
So like when you look at your your mid-year check and they're not doing well, you're looking at all the reasons why they might not be doing well. Not just that they're low in skills, but they might not be engaged, or they might not be coming to, so you're looking at all skills.
Yeah, in fact, the next report I'm gonna give you, it really talks about social emotional learning skills and the connection that students have to their own agency and really looking at themselves as well-rounded students, like for example, self-efficacy, right? And so, yeah, when we talk about the strategic plan covering the elements of the whole child, that's what you're asking. So yeah, we collect data on that as well.
Okay.
And explore those things. And the way we report on that is really through what's called street data.
Yeah.
And that's, so it's really, you can't really get that from like a number measure. And so you have to really go back and talk to kids and staff and kind of see what's going on.
A belief that we have, we've articulated in our system where we recognize that we are underperforming what our capacity is. We really believe that teachers are doing the best they can. If they do better, they do better. This is an attempt to know better.
Yeah.
And it's in the moment when you, as Erin said, you can do something about it. The student growth goals that are part of the teacher evaluation process have gone through a major shift. They used to be about, did kids meet the academic mark? And now it's about, well, did they or didn't they, and what do you make of that? So the evaluation portion of that isn't any longer on whether the kids did or didn't. The evaluation portion is on what the teachers made of it. What did you learn from that? And what did you do about what you learned from that?
I just feel like in today's world in education, just listening to kids,
Yep.
the biggest challenge is getting them to actually engage. Because, you know, they come to school and there's that just a different attitude now, and it's like they have all these other things that take their attention, and just how do we get them engaged to learn? You know, I feel like that's a big challenge.
Aaron's really resisting right now talking about mastery goals.
I know.
Yes, he is.
So,
That's coming, that's coming.
So I have a question, because when we're talking about whether the kids mastered it or not, and what the teacher did about it, are we giving the teachers enough agency to stop and deal with things at that time? Or, because I know for a while there we were hearing about the guaranteed curriculum and making sure everybody was at the same page, but if your class isn't on the same page as your neighbors, then there's things you might need to do that they don't need to do with your class. And I just want to check on that the teachers have the agency to act on
See,
what did you do about
You're
it.
definitely hitting on something that when you guys were talking earlier, this was the part that was rattling around in my brain too. There's an old saying that your system is perfectly designed to get the results that it's getting. When you do something like this, I'm looking there, but you guys are looking here. When you build something like that, your system isn't necessarily designed for that. So if this is going to be important, there's going to be a system redesign that's actually infused into that to make this viable. And it's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, because you can't just hold the teacher responsible for doing that, you have to
Right.
also enable them.
That's right. Give them the time, give them the resources, yeah.
And I think also working together as a grade level team, right?
Right.
Because it may not just be one class, but it's a
Right.
group of kids
Right.
across three
Right.
classes. And
Right.
how do we work together to meet that need?
Plus finding out from your neighbor that, oh, they're doing this wonderful thing, oh, I think I'm going to do that, that sounds great, you know. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think our job is really to arm teachers with the best possible tools they can have that really target students and what they need. And so there's an art to teaching and really a science to teaching. The science of teaching is where the tools come in, right? And I think what you're trying to address, I think, is really around the art of teaching, which is, can teachers still really adjust and think and really be with kids in a way that is relationship-centered, centered on belonging, understanding, and then adjust based on what they need in the moment, right?
Right,
So
but
we have
that's
to give the
also
tools
part
to do
of the science, I mean, because you see the mistakes that they're making, and that's the science of deciding what is the issue there and addressing that. But I also wanted to make sure that the teachers were, that just like we're giving kids the voice, the teachers have the voice to go, okay, I really need to take care of this, and not be going, you know, you're supposed to be on page 50 and you're not there yet, so.
I used to have a saying as a teacher, like either we build in fun and space for people to be
Right,
people,
or they're
they'll
going
take
to
it.
do it,
Right?
yes.
And I know the reality of classrooms is that teachers can go to their classroom and shut the door and do, honestly, whatever they want. And so our job is to really structure it in a way where we support them as human beings and humanize the process. But we have to give the right tools to make the decisions that they will always make. And so I think those tools have been honestly lacking and missing. And so we have to do a better job of arming teachers with us.
Well, and I feel like we're getting this good curriculum and we're doing these things, but it's so important, in my opinion, to focus on the teacher themselves and can they engage with the kids? Are they going to be interested in that? You know, because if they're not, I don't care what you have in front of them, the kids aren't going to care. And so it's like, when you look at teachers, I just feel like we have to make sure that they're doing that, you know, because otherwise we can have the best curriculum in the world, and if they're not engaging the kids, it's not going to work.
Yeah, something I can say with the clear conscience is that our teachers, we have really good teachers here. And that's the norm in our district. There's no issue in my mind whatsoever about that, I'll call it the X factor of teaching. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is, are we giving them the right tools and the right kind of data in order to really adjust what they're doing with kids in a way that really builds them up.
So we're completely over time, but I don't care. I want to expand your comment on what Jaden said about what he witnessed over at PTR. So the rest of that story is that Principal Nikki Mesa was utilizing one of the building thinking classroom strategies with 5th grade kids. She went in and thought, let's see what I do. She went in and she applied the strategy, but she didn't apply it correctly. She missed some pieces. She presented the kids with a problem they could not solve. She could not solve. The teacher could not solve. It wasn't that great. She went away, she looked, she realized what her mistake was. She went back the next day. She taught the strategy the way it was taught. Eventually the student solved the problem. They got a pizza lunch for that. But she said, I didn't plan on getting emotional, but she said kids went to recess working on that math problem.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we say we're building the pedagogy with the curriculum, that's an example of what we're trying to do. We're trying to build that in there. Because what happens to the adults in that space, they get fired up. And work becomes not work, it becomes fun and it becomes engaging. And the more they're excited and engaged, it just spills over to kids. So
I'm excited to see that.
Yeah.
My granddaughter was a freshman last year, and she said it was the first time that she really loved math, and it was like she got it, you know. It was, I don't know if they were doing a pilot, or I don't know if it was a teacher, but she never normally loves math, and so she was like, it's my favorite subject. I'm like, really?
Yeah, we want to see more of that.
I'm here in opposite, so.
Right.
For my daughter, yes. She's frustrated with, and I'm thinking it's the pilot program that's out there, and that she's just like, I'm not getting this, and she has a test, and that's high. So she's a little bit stressed out.
What grade? What grade?
10th grade.
Yeah.
That's a reminder that we're in the human business, right? I mean, if we were just building tires, it'd be easy. Just build better tires. Right, but we're actually helping students, human beings, grow. And so there's preferences and experiences and ideas. And so
That pilot,
it pushes you out past your comfort zone.
That pilot at 10th grade is just getting started. That pilot at 10th grade is just getting started. So there's time. I doubt it's that. So, sorry. Okay, we're going to leave before
you get into it. Well, I think you're doing a great job.
I'll be quick with that.
And can I get a picture of
Did you hear that?
What's that?
Westover?
What?
She wanted a picture of JJ.
I wanted that picture of David.
Oh, I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, corollary to this is really, I sort of gave a teaser on this earlier, is really looking at the measurements of our strategic goals. We spent, I think, a great day in May really talking about like how are we going to measure these goals in ways that are going to be actionable and for us to really think about that information that's super important for us. And so on the schedule is really looking at what are our strategic goal number 1, which is around academic growth, and what's strategic goal number 3, which is really around whole child. But what you're not going to see today is really like a spreadsheet of things, right? You're going to see some numbers, but it's not necessarily going to be like the kind of data that maybe you're used to. And so going back to that May work, we really emphasize this idea that data really means lots of different things. And so like satellite data is usually, if you're in a satellite looking over something and you're looking down, what do you see from that 30,000 foot level? And so all of the SVA data that we're looking at, that's satellite data. But if you look at like map data, so you start getting closer down to where we are here, that's the map data. As you think about the structures of the systems and things that are like patterns you see in a school, those are all, that's map data as well. So those two things are things you can see from outside the school, right? But if you get a little closer to that street data, the only way you can know street data is by talking to people. So what are the experiences that they have? What do they see as being important or not important? And so those are all elements that we're going to report on throughout all of our strategic plan. And for today, it's really focusing on that map data and that street data. So here's a goal number 1 around academic growth, and I put these big red arrows in this teeny tiny little font so you can't read it. But really it's around that street data. And the way we're really using a lot of the street data is around this collection of a tool called Panorama. Now Panorama is a really interesting tool. I looked this up. They actually survey 3,500,000 kids at least 3 times a year, right? And so it's called a national norm reference tool, right? And so that makes about 6,000 schools across the nation. 25% of the schools across the state use this tool, right? And so as I go over the data, you'll see how are we doing, or how are our students really perceiving themselves compared to that 3,500,000 students, right? Kind of interesting tool. And the same thing with, we talk about whole child, and the question came up, what are we doing for who they are inside, how do they feel about themselves? Are we producing kids that can function on their own, independently with that agency outside of the school system? And again, we're looking at Panorama data as well. So here is Panorama. There's 5 measures for Panorama. And these were chosen intentionally to align to agency and dignity because that's inherent in all of our goals that are out there. And so what you'll see in this one, you see the 5 measures there on the left-hand side, and that say percent favorable. So what that says is when they surveyed students, and maybe the two of you can talk about this because you're taking it, right, Panorama? But this idea is that percent favorable is like they saw themselves as this. So like we talk about supportive relationships, percent favorable is like, yeah, I have that, right? And so we go through social awareness, like do you look internally and really kind of see like other people within yourself? And I'll go through each one of these, I'll go through it now. But that first column talks about percent of our students that actually said, yep, I have that, right? The third column over talks about compared nationally. This is where we get to that 3,500,000 measure that's out there. And so how did our students say they were compared to the norm that's out there? And then the last column is, did they grow? Did we get more kids or less kids that said, yeah, I got that, okay? So here's the first one, supportive relationships. So 83% of our students said that they had a supportive relationship at school, which is huge. This is our biggest strength as a system. And you would think, and this has always been true as long as I've been in Ording, that idea is that do we have someone we can go to that will support us no matter what, right? And so 83% said yes. So if you look at that curve, that's the norm reference part, that blue part. And so the black line is where do our students, and I combine all of the students K through 12 together to come up with this number. And there's variations among schools. But our students generally say, well, at least compared to the national norm, that they have more supportive relationships than most kids their age, right? In grade level. Pretty good, right? So here's some questions I know you're curious about. What kind of questions do they ask kids? And so one question is, do you have a teacher or another adult from school who you can count on to help you no matter what? 79% of our students said yes, and the right-hand side there it says, yeah, that's an increase, right? And the other 3 questions, I'm not going to read them to you, but you can kind of see where the questions are going with each one of these. And that last one I thought was pretty great. 90% of our students said they have a friend from school that can be completely honest in your sophomore round, which is cool. It's a great thing, right? We talk about belonging and connection. Yeah. Another one's around social awareness. 53% of our students said, yeah, we think about perspective of others, right? Sounds like a lot, but if you look at the norm reference part of that curve, if we're to the left at the top of that curve, the apex, then our students have less of that than other students, around the 3,500 students. So how does that break down in a trend over time? Well, this is last year, so we do it 3 times a year. And so we started with 52%, dropped to 49% right around Christmas. It wasn't cheerful Christmas, who knows? And then it went up to 53%, pretty flat line, but we did have variation on it. So there's some sample questions from the social awareness. Really the highest one there is, during the past 30 days, how carefully do you listen to other people's points of view? Really important. When we talk about student voice and really connecting with student voice, that's key, isn't it? Right? So we think about like academic elements of agency. That's super important to really measure that. And I know you're going to ask me the question, well, is this actionable? What do we do with it, right? And what we do with it is that each student's data is taken, and every teacher then gets that student's basic responses. And then they give you like plans. They give you like things you can do with that student and give to that student to really develop that. Or as a teacher, things you can do with that as well. And so it does get to that specific grain size for teachers and students. So here's learning strategies, how well students deliberately use strategies to manage their own learning, right? Agency, right? And so 63%, right? And that black line is kind of to the right of the index. That's good, right? So our students are that report they're slightly higher. So how do we do up here? Pretty flat, right? So what we hope to see over time, that even though we're doing quote unquote better, I think we'd hope to see some growth over that over time, right? And here's some questions there. Overall, how well can you figure out how to learn things? Now, if I ask adults that question, do you think I get 69% of them to say, yeah, I can do that? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So this is a pretty optimistic thing that we're asking kids to do. Growth mindset, really big, right? Angela Duckworth talks a lot about this in her research. Comes up and says that if kids have grit and perseverance, they have a growth mindset. That's what causes it. And so half of our students said, yep, that we have that, right? But then if you look at us compared to the national norm of every kid that's in the same grade, we're slightly less, right? So here's our trend. Looks like it went down slightly, right? So we're looking for an upward trend over time. And as we report this data is going to come up again. Really think about that as a board and what we need to do as a district to really elevate that. Because we're not in total control of this. We need to partner with our community and think about these things. So a question that goes in there, overall, how well can you figure out how to learn things? That's on your own. Pretty important skill to have as an adult, I think. Yeah. Or even as a kid, right? We're not just talking about like academic stuff. It could be about life. When you have like problems in relationships, like, can you figure it out? Important. Here's self-efficacy, big measure for agency. So how much students believe they can succeed achieving academic outcomes. Now, there's a ton of research that says if you believe you can do something, this is not going to surprise you. That you can actually, you're better at it, right? Like if I believe I'm really good at math, I'll probably be a better mathematician, right? If I believe I'm really good at football, even though I'm terrible at it, I show up, I'll do better than I would have, right? And so self-efficacy is really the measure of that. So 46% of our students said, yeah, I have that. But if you look at us compared to the national norm, we're on the left side of that curve, so we've got some work to do, right? So this one grew though. That's good news. So now we're looking at, is it on the upward trend? Yeah, that's really good. So there's some questions. How confident are you that you can do the hardest work that's assigned in your classes? This is really important. Because hopefully, and I think, not even hopefully, I know this for a fact, teachers are challenging kids every day, right? So what comes down to whether they do it or not, engage it or not, do they believe they can do it, right? And so these are all teachable skills, by the way. It's not just you show up with it. And if you have it, great. If not, sorry. It's one of those things that we can actually then target more on. I'm going to end here with the actual street data. So at the end of every one of these panorama surveys that kids take 3 times a year, it asks them like a broad question. In this case, like, is there anything else that adults can do to support you? And so then I entered that into AI, and it gave me trends. So there's 3 trends that came up. Construction comes up quite a bit, and they want clarity in that. So remember back when I was talking about like coherence and instruction? That's clarity. That's what they're asking for. They're asking for coherence, which I think is really interesting, right? They're looking for academic assistance. So like when we said we're actually adopting a new tool, iReady, to target what students are doing and actually give them the help they need in time that they can actually do something about it. That's it right there, right? And last one, classroom environment and tools. We think about like, what does it feel like when you walk into a classroom? Every one of our principals, everyone, and every teacher in this district engaged in conversations around dignity. And that's huge because it changes how you think about interactions, conflict, what's good, what's not good. And that dignity conversation is gonna elevate that right there. But it's still data, and we have to look at this data along the way. So, that's my report. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them.
I really like this report. I think it gives you a lot of good information. And I like, I get that with the explaining it better, because you just, a lot of times you don't want to say it, but if it's clear, if they can make it more clear, then you'll get it, instead of having to just act like you get it. Because even as adults, we don't like to say sometimes, could you explain that again? So I think that's important, It's good. How did you find out about this panorama? Is it just like everywhere?
It is really cornered the market in terms of measuring student opinions around social emotional learning, agency, dignity, those kind of things. And like I said, a quarter of the schools in Washington State use it.
Yeah, I like it.
That's a lot. I mean, all huge district uses it.
Oh.
And you can pull up your data online and look at it. So, yeah. Oh, and just as a side note, we actually used a parent survey as well in this, and we'll share that data with you and kind of see where they came in with some of these things. Not personally, but about their experiences of interacting with schools.
That's great. I like it. I like this.
I was wondering if either before the midterm one or the ending one, sometime during the year, do the teachers ever, and Brittany might know this answer, do the teachers ever discuss what the questions actually mean with the students? Because a couple of those questions, especially like for the kids that are first taking it themselves, because I know they don't take it on their own, K2 is
Yeah,
it?
K through 2, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, third and fourth graders, some of those, they might not really be sure what exactly it is they're asking. And then they might, that might just affect their answer too. And so I'm wondering if there's some discussion about what are we really asking you here?
Yeah, I think that, well, in particular the middle school, but they spend a lot of time talking about what the words mean within that.
Okay.
But yeah, there's some prep work that's usually done.
Okay.
To talk about like, they don't really use the words like self-efficacy.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What they can do is sort of explain the concept of that. And then the teachers have basically a perceptual element of that. So how do I think that student is doing things based on conversations they have?
Right, but for the kids themselves, I mean, like to identify, well, what does it look like if I am doing that?
Yeah.
I mean, the one that I noticed was the one about, can I talk to somebody about something different without arguing? And I thought, well, how do little kids get confused about what is arguing and what isn't arguing? So some of those, I would think it would be good to have some discussion so they really understand what it is they're answering.
Yeah, even though the tool is measuring the same things, and that's what I shared with you, the language is modified for students along the way. So yeah, there are discussions and questions that happen around that as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Well, sorry. Even in high school, sometimes I read those questions because I've taken the panorama survey many times, and I feel like sometimes they can be a little subjective, where it's like it really depends on the context, and it really depends on, well, what do you want from me, really? Because just now I learned, oh, that's how I was supposed to answer that. So I feel like, because for me, it's more just like, oh, it's this kind of routine thing where it's, oh, I get my email, I check my email, okay, answer, and turn it in, don't worry about it. But I feel like if more students really had an understanding of what is this really going to, what's the main goal, and why are we even doing it, rather than, oh, well, yeah, we need feedback, but what's the whole idea behind the feedback? What are the statistics? Why are we doing it in better school?
There was I had a conversation with Kevin, our middle school principal, and he said that he had a concern, his leadership team had a concern that kids are just going through it, clicking it, right? They're heading through it. And I said, well, that could be true. That's probably true. So the question is, like with curriculum, how do we support that, right? And so how do we preload the conversation, what you're talking about, Kathy, that's super important, to really think about those things. But what you do with that data is super important as well. So our students setting goals and making sense of their own data around that. And those are things that we're working towards as a system. Like I talked briefly about mastery goals. Those are things where students are looking at their own data And of course, they're gonna click through it unless it's important to them, right? Like, if they don't care about it, I'd probably click through it too. Like, I remember as a kid doing Scantrons, and I draw a Christmas tree on it, but they didn't care about it, right? But it's what we do with that data is what's super important. That's what causes change and growth in our system with kids. And so it's really building systems around that. So as we get better coherence in our system, we build better systems and make more meaning for students and staff around those things.
And Carly, thanks for speaking up about that, because that's the further extension of what I was asking. But we also need to think about what the kids think about that.
Yeah, and it's a data point, it's not the data point.
Right.
Right, so if
Right.
you look at, like, for us, little child, if that was the only thing I said, well, this is it, right here. So I don't think that would be fair to really paint a picture of our progress throughout the district. It's a data point for us to really look at, and we'll get better with that data point.
Students could have a really bad day and it's not gonna be very good.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, think about SBA, right?
Right.
That day, oh, that's big, right?
Yeah. I will have to say, Erin, that I've been here a long time and to the cabinet. I am so impressed with all the new things you guys are doing, like special ed curriculum. It's been something I've asked for years, and it's like, we just never got it. And just doing all the different things, I think you guys are going such a good direction. I mean, we're not by any means perfect yet, but we're never perfect. But I feel good about it. I feel like we're getting good curriculum. I feel like we're doing good things, and I like it. I like it.
Good information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good discussion, good questions. I appreciate it. Excellent reports. All right, next item on our agenda is the second reading of policy 2023 VP, digital citizenship and media literacy. So if there is no further discussion on this, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the second reading of policy consideration.
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And we've got a long consent agenda. If there's no discussion, I will take a motion for items 1 through 9.
I move to approve items 1 through 9 on the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then we have a number of important action items this evening. The first item is prepared by Director Rad regarding minimum basic education requirement compliance. It's nice to know we are compliant. I will take a motion.
I move to approve the 2024-2025 minimum basic education requirement compliance.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And the next item is for the return of the school resource officer for our district, which personally,
Good.
I am very pleased to see and appreciate the support from the city in that. I will take a motion.
I move to approve the school resource officer interlocal agreement as presented.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I believe the officer gives.
On the short term.
Look at. CTE is important to this board. So I will take a motion on this next conditional certificate renewal.
I move to authorize the district to request a career and technical education conditional certificate renewal through OSPI effective September 1, 2024 on behalf of the teacher listed within the presented memo.
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then we have some new conditional limited certificates. I will entertain a motion.
Just trying to make sure I was on the right one. I move to authorize the district to request career and technical education conditional certificates through OSPI effective September 1st, 2024 on behalf of the teachers listed within the presented memo.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Director Christensen's just dominating the action items tonight.
Yeah, some of that.
All right. This next item is the OASA tentative agreement. It's prepared by Director Christensen. And did not see any questions come forth about this. So I will be happy to take a motion.
I move to approve the 2024 to 2027 memorandum of agreement with the principals group known as OASA as presented, effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Did you want to comment on that, Lily? You're welcome to.
Thank you. I actually, when you get to the next item, given we have our union partner here, I want to comment. Are we at that item?
We are.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity. It's been a wonderful spring and summer that we got to bargain with our OEA partners, and we have our president, Brittany Smith, here this evening, and she was joined by former co-president Ben Peterson to bargain this CBA, this collective bargaining agreement. We were able to reach a 3-year term that would be effective with your approval on September 1st, so having just passed. It was in my opinion, I think we shared the same opinion, a pretty collaborative approach in this, and we were able to settle this contract in 9 meetings, which in the big picture of all of the things that you work with in a 60-ish page document, that's pretty good. We were able to stay within the board's authority for the spend, and some of the highlights, the topics that we worked on were reducing some of the class sizes, providing some opportunities for some leave language that helps our employees and their members better understand some of the leaves available to them. And then we put in some safety language for our educators. And, overall, it was a great process, a great opportunity to meet with our union partners. And I just wanted to say thank you to them, and I hope that you will consider this for approval.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say on the heels of that, that I truly appreciate the relationship and the collaboration with which Cabinet and you and the partners actually work with to get these done. It's never fun to hear the horror stories, and I feel like we've been blessed with a great working relationship. So I just want to thank all those involved with that.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no more discussion. I will take a motion.
I move to approve the OSD OEA collective bargaining agreement as bargained by the district and association for the term of 9/1/24 to 8/31/27. Good job as a former bargainer. I just have to take that.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Very good. Those are exciting. I'm really happy. Thank you to our unions for the partnership and to our team here. It's good. The next item is one of my favorite. This one always is entertaining. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve the surplus request as presented.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Surplus request pass. Very good. We made it to board comments. Anything to add?
A couple of things. One, just based on tonight's meeting, it was long, there was a lot of information. But one of the things I really feel the need to call and spotlight again is the work done by Dr. Westover. I think that that's $1.1 million in change that she was able to get reimbursed to the school. The one thing that just came to my mind is a sigh of a little bit of relief that I don't think until you sit up here or you're really involved in schools, you realize what that money does for our students. And that is money that we can put back into their education instead of things that we might not have been able to do. So between that and the time spent on writing grants, as was evident in the superintendent's report tonight, it's just amazing work, and it goes kind of beyond what they're expected to do every day, but it's necessary. And those monies that come in that contribute to our kids, it's just less money than the taxpayers from a long time. So I just wanted to really shine another spotlight on that and say thank you. And secondly, as we discussed last week, first of all, I want to say thank you to all of you for allowing me grace to learn. I still don't fully understand all of this advocacy process that we do and the things that school boards have to do, get filtered down from the state and through this association that we belong to. But the General Assembly is coming up. It starts tomorrow. Thank you, Carrie, for taking Friday. I appreciate that. But they did have an emergency position proposal that came up, and I just wanted to share that real quick with you. It's kind of a no-brainer support. And so I kind of ran it by Ed and Carrie. But it is on insurance premiums, and basically that WASDA will initiate and support legislation that requires the state to fully fund any increases in the cost of insurance premiums in excess of inflation, particularly those that result from changes to state law made by the state legislature. So it was a recommended do pass. I agree with that. I assumed you all would too.
Yes.
So it's kind of on our WASDA agenda to support that. That's it for me. Thank you.
I think also the safety net really says some good things about all of our SPED staff, the teachers, because they're writing it. I mean, I'm sure you made some corrections, but sounds like they're writing pretty good IEPs to get that back. And I know that when you're doing a safety net IEP as a teacher, you're a little nervous to make sure everything's right. So I appreciate that from everyone involved.
And I want to say thank you to staff, cabinet, everybody in the district. Let me say that with school starting, everyone getting back into what's going on. It takes an adjustment, and it's an adjustment at home. It's an adjustment when you get back here. So great job to everybody, and yeah, it's nice to see.
And just one last comment to me, again, welcoming Carly. Jaden, it's great to have you here with us after a summer hiatus of not having you here. We're excited to hear from you. Thanks for participating today. Looking forward to what's to come.
I would just like to add, in May, board, you set a goal around elevating voice across the district, and part of that in our conversation was around that idea around student advisory, and kudos to Jade and Carly for helping to think about what are their values going into that, what are some key ways to engage students in conversation. I couldn't be more thrilled for the very first time what I heard them say and elevate, because there is incredible work happening across our district with our certificated and classified staff, and be able to have students elevate other students' voice and bring that to the table. I am thrilled with what I heard for the first time. And just remind the board that we will have the opportunity with Jaden and Carly this November to share with all board directors from across the state and student board reps in attendance at WASDA. So we'll continue to elevate them and elevate our student voices, and then create a presentation that will help us to just share our experience with other schools in the hopes that that becomes something that spreads.
Very good. All right. If that's everything, I will adjourn tonight's meeting at 8 o'clock.